Hey, welcome back to my channel, Duct Tape Mechanic. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to repair this fan. And the issue with this fan is that it takes a long time for it to get going. So no matter what setting you have it on, whether it's high, medium, or low, it just takes forever to build up enough momentum for the fan to finally start spinning at the correct speed. And I'll show you what I mean with that. You may be thinking that this is just a cheap Chinese fan that it's probably just better to replace rather than repair, but the whole major theme of this channel is to repair things and reuse them or repurpose them instead of just tossing them out. So we'll be going ahead with that repair, and I'll show you it's not that difficult of a repair. So I'm going to go ahead and set this thing to low, and you'll see that it just doesn't, it takes forever to get going. Right there. So you can kind of hear the motor humming as well, but the blade is just not spinning. And so just right off the bat, I'm gonna suspect that this is a capacitor, since this is an induction motor, and the capacitor is what helps this motor build up enough starting torque to get it going. So I suspect the capacitor is bad on this fan here. That's why it takes forever to get going, and this is one of the main tells that the capacitor is bad, is that it takes forever for it to get starting, forever to start. I think if I left it on high for a long time, it probably would start spinning at the correct speed, but we do risk damaging the motor by this. So I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to take this thing apart and try to get this back up and running for just a couple of bucks. So if you like this repair, or if you want to see more repairs like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel, Duct Tape Mechanic, for more tinkering videos. Alright, so this is what the motor looks like with all the casing and everything off. It was pretty much just a couple of screws that held it on. And this is the capacitor I was speaking about earlier. It's a 3 microfarad capacitor with a tolerance of 5%. So we'll go ahead and take this capacitor off, and we'll measure the capacitance of it using a multimeter, and see if that's the issue. With these type of fans, there's not too much that could go wrong. I mean, the capacitor could fail. Maybe the bearings inside here need to be greased, but other than that, there's not too much we could do. So I suspect that it's the capacitor, just based on how it takes forever to get to the correct speed, but once it does, it stays at that speed. So that leads me to believe that it's the capacitor that's not allowing the fan to overcome the starting torque. But let's go ahead and take it off and take a look. Oh, we got this hooked up to my multimeter, and it's set to read the capacitance, and the units for that is in farads. In this particular capacitor, it's microfarads, but currently we're reading 2.945 microfarads. So that's actually pretty good. So maybe I beginning to think that the capacitor is okay, and it's the actual bearings that need to be greased. So that's a good sign. And maybe you could learn from my mistake, is maybe grease the bearings first, then go to the capacitor. But what's done is done. We'll go ahead and solder this capacitor back on, and we'll look at to grease the bearings, the front and the back bearing, and see if that does the trick. All right, now now that we've verified that the capacitor is okay, and I went ahead and soldered it back onto the wires here, we'll go ahead and grease the bearings. So there's two bearings in here that keep the rotor, that allow the rotor to rotate around its axis, and the one is up front right here. So, and the other one we're actually gonna have to take this off to get to. So let's get to that one first. So we may have to move the capacitor out of the way. See if I can just come on loosen this one. Just kind of undo these screws in the back over here. I think we are going to have to at least undo the screw that holds the capacitor in place and kind of just let it hang from the wires. There we go. Get that out of the way. And the bearing is inside there. So we're going to go ahead and I love using this oil right here on various lubrication applications, but we're going to drop a couple of drops of oil. Right onto that bearing. Kind of just spin the rotor. I already feel it spinning a little more, a little bit better. Perhaps it was just gummed up. Alright, so then we'll drop a couple of drops of oil on this front bearing as well. And then we'll put it back together and see what it does. Should be enough. Alright, let me put this thing back together and we'll see what it does. Alright, let's give her a test drive. Well, super unsafe this way, but it works real well. Alright, so we got this thing all put back together, and we're going to be giving this a proper test drive here. Put this thing to, I'm going to start off a low first. Seems to be working great. Maybe you could help me cool down in the shed, which is probably over 100 degrees in here right now. So yeah, hopefully you like this video. If your fan's acting up like this, where it takes a long time for it to come to speed, I highly recommend that you oil the front and the rear bearing. And if that doesn't work, you go ahead and change out the motor capacitor. I initially thought it was the capacitor that was bad, but turned out not to be after I measured it. Another test I've heard you could do is if the capacitor is bad, the motor will have trouble with that getting over the starting torque. So you can go ahead and spin the fan blade with your hand, and if it immediately catches on and starts spinning at a normal rate, that's an indicator that it is the capacitor. I did do that here, and I did notice that despite me spinning it, it still wouldn't go on to the normal spin rate. So maybe that I should have taken that advice at the start. But anyways, hopefully you learned something, and remember to hit the thumbs up sign.